Okay, I'd like to call the special meeting of the Town Council Budget Workshop, April 29th, and I'm going to ask Deputy Mayor Forrest to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Here we go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Sue, will you call the roll, please?
Mayor Lesser,
Here.
Deputy Mayor Forrest,
Here.
Councilor Bailey,
Here.
Councilor Carbone,
Here.
Councilor Clancy, Councilor Jurek,
Here.
Councilor Rhodes, Councilor Timbrow, Councilor Zambrello. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue, and good evening, everyone. Tonight, first up is our building department. We have a list of about 6 or so different groups to present, and the floor is yours, Steve. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Town Manager Presley, and council members. Thank you for your time and allowing us the opportunity to present this year's budget for the building department. My name is Sean Hussey, Chief Building Official. With me tonight is our full-time admin, Debbie Picard. Please bear with me since it's my first budget hearing. So, Mr. Mayor, if I get a little long-winded, feel free to cue the music and hit the lights, do whatever you want to do.
You got it. You're off to a great start, Sean.
Thank you. Your time is valuable, so I don't want to regurgitate everything on pages 140 to 147 of the town's fiscal year budget handout. However, I would like to emphasize some key aspects of the building department. We are required to enforce the state building code governed by Connecticut general statutes. We review applications on a timely basis and are able to turn most permits around within 2 weeks. We pride ourselves with prompt timeframes for inspections, most inspections within 24 to 48 hours. We are also on call in the event of any emergencies within town. We are required to obtain 30 hours of continuing education every year as well. There are many more intangibles that we do on a daily basis, but wanted just to highlight a few of those. I'd like to move on to our fiscal year proposed budget for 2026, unless the council has any generalized questions for the building department. Most line items are standard, which carry over from year to year. The 2 line items I'd like to explain in more detail are equipment, which is number 54,420, and salaries and wages, which is number 50,001, since they are both new for this year. Starting with equipment, we've requested 2 monitors for both large and small plan review, as well as 3 tablets, so we can not only review in the field, but we can approve and or deny inspections electronically for faster response time. These products will work seamlessly with the new software to be released soon called OpenGov. The next line item under salaries and wages revolves around the building development administrator. Currently, Steve Lattarulo is serving this role. Steve, as many of you know already, had previously served as the consummate building official for the past 14 years for the town of Wethersfield. We had talked in great detail that the town of how Wethersfield, or any town for that matter, could benefit from a position that not only served to help the building department, but to be a liaison between developers, business owners, homeowners, and even within town staff. Steve has served this role admirably, and tangible proof to this is issuing 3 certificate of occupancies to No Mames, Fresh Market, and Raising Cane's, all within 3.5 weeks. For the building department to issue a CO, I actually need all departments to first sign off for completion. That would include health department, zoning departments, engineering departments, fire marshal, and such. This vital role saves a considerable amount of time for any applicant. I had previously submitted 3 letters from individuals who couldn't say enough about this new position, which I presented to each and every one of you. The cover letter from Bill Hanley of Raising Cane's is the most recent, and I'd like to read it in to the record really quickly, if I may. Bill Hanley writes, Sean, per an earlier conversation, I want to thank your department for both its professionalism and expedience when it was necessary during the construction of this project. This is the first time that I had a project coordinator, Steve Latarullo, as a town administrator to move things along in a very timely manner without sacrificing the quality of our work. The concept works fantastic. As you know, my schedule was pretty tight, and Steve recognized that very early in the project. His cooperation helped immensely, including the coordination with other departments when it came time for the certificate of occupancy. Please pass this message along as you see fit. Thanks again, Bill Hanley, Site Superintendent, Pilson Contractors for Raising Cane's. We've also received praise from Mike Howard of CSI Contractors, who was the project manager of Fresh Market, and Sebastian LaRusso, for any Karate Kid fans, no relation to Daniel LaRusso, of Payne Construction, who was project manager for working with No Mames. In order to provide this important position to the town and to the building department, I investigated ways to make the new position revenue neutral, if you will. There are 3 components that helps to bring it all together. The first and largest piece is to initiate a certificate of approval fee, which many towns throughout the state currently have in place. Article 108.2 of our code guides us to that authority. This added fee to any application is fully warranted given the amount of work to close each and every permit out. This fee, $30, is a typical fee for a certificate of approval, and the department continues to see a 5 to 7% increase in the number of permits each year. We anticipate reaching 2,800 permits, which would yield revenue of $84,000 alone. The second item of note is the reduction of our part-time inspector. Dave Jolly has served the town valiantly when needed and is looking to spend more time cultivating his garden and spending more time with his granddaughters. The final piece is the revaluation of our permit fees as a whole. They've been in place for many years, and with the guidance of the International Code Council, ICC, we've been able to adjust these permit numbers to current market status. Also, our permit numbers in dollars still coincide with neighboring towns for consistency. I truly hope you understand the important role this position has. I anticipate other towns will follow suit with this role, with the town of Wethersfield being ahead of the curve. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sean. Job well done. I appreciate
Thank you, Mr.
that.
Mayor.
Well explained. So at this point, and this is your first time, what we generally do is we have council questions and comments. So open it up to all councilors for questions and comments on the building department budget. Anybody want to lead off with a question? And I'm going to have Deputy Mayor Forrest and then Councilor Durk. And then
Thanks, Sean. Pretty quickly, you handed us a set of letters. Some of them they're all positive or describing the needs, et cetera, et cetera. But you read a discussion, I believe it was about Raising Cane's, or maybe, and then another one from Fresh Market. And I believe there was even a third as I was listening to you.
Correct, yes.
Where are those? Are those letters here? Because I don't see them.
I don't have those. Those were, they really weren't solicited, if you will, Deputy Mayor. They were kind of sent to me as being advocates for this position. So we didn't really go out and try to implore everyone to send us letters.
Yeah, sure.
But we did get positive feedback from both Mike at Fresh Market, who was site coordinator, as well as Sebastian at No Mames. So,
and did they send you that like an email to you or something like that?
It was verbal. It was verbal. Yeah, it was just a verbal communication that we had with them, and that was really it. Again, it's not like I went out and specifically said to them, please send me these letters. These other letters were, again, they were just sent to me, and I really wanted to read Bill Hanley's because it was the most recent with one of the more recent COs at Raising Cane's.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Councilor Durk.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Sean, for a detailed presentation.
Thank you.
Quick question on the new position. As I was writing down the numbers, I didn't hear what you said about the part-time inspector. Are we going to keep the part-time inspector or not?
Part-time Inspector Dave Jolly will remain on staff. It will kind of be a emergency type of status only. He's actually currently, Dave comes in 2 days a week. He's going to be going down to 1 day a week, 5 hours a week. And I would anticipate, unfortunately, the exodus of Dave Jolly probably within the next few months. Like I said, he's got more important. He just had, congratulations to him, he just had another granddaughter, so he feels that even though he does not want to leave us at the town of Wethersfield, he would like to kind of move on to different things.
And then on Steve's position, I don't know how busy we get at the moment. Or do we have a lot of work that Steve would actually just be doing that work? Or is Steve going to be available to do other type of work within the
Yeah,
department?
we
as
do. Good
needed?
question, Mickey. So Steve's role is kind of a flex role, if you will. So he is helping out with the building department as well as that liaison type of role. So it's kind of a hybrid, if you will. We're still in the search for another assistant building official. We have had some applicants that we are reviewing, not that many. But again, Steve's role is not only helping the building department with all the day-to-day activities, as well as kind of pushing along any of those projects in order to facilitate, just trying to be as smooth as possible.
Thank you. And I love your idea about the iPads and inspections being automatic and
We're
everything.
looking forward to it, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councilor Durk. Further council questions? Sean, I wanted to dive a little bit more into the revenue neutral
Sure.
idea. And before I do that, I wanted to say, we have been getting a lot of compliments about how business friendly. Your son was looking for you. He was here poking. I said you went out.
Good questions for the council?
He submitted a list of questions for you. No. We've been getting a lot of compliments of how business friendly the town is and how many new businesses are coming to town, and your department has a lot to do with that. And Raising Cane's and Fresh Market and No Mames are a few examples, and there's many more. So we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now, getting back to the revenue neutral, if you could explain that, I think there's a new fee, $30, that will help
That's
pay
correct.
for that position, and then some fee adjustments. Can you go into that?
Correct.
And
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor. So we are anticipating, we're seeing that 5 to 7% increase. It seems like every year. Debbie did an analysis earlier today, and kind of we went over the numbers of how we're looking at permits. That's where we come up with anticipating around 2,800 permits for the fiscal year 2026. So every permit needs to get a certificate of approval. In order to close a permit out, in order to get closure, you need a certificate of approval. That fee will be assigned when the application is dropped off or online.
sorry, the business will pay that fee.
Correct. The applicant, whoever the applicant
No,
is.
okay.
Correct. So simple math, we took 2,800 permits, which is anticipated, times the $30. That yields $84,000 of revenue. And again, I just want to reiterate the fact that other towns already have this in place.
Understood.
Not something that's unheard of. It's within statute to certainly do this. So that's the first part of the puzzle. The other part was obviously Dave Jolly as a part-time inspector reducing his hours. And then the last piece of it was the revaluation of the permit fees. The permit fees have not been changed since 2009. So in order to do that, we evaluated each and every item. And these are minimum-based fees. So if someone comes to the counter, they're unsure of what a cost is, those fees are adjusted to today's current market. So we anticipate that fee payment to go up as well.
And that will mostly, hopefully, cover
That would
the salary.
most likely, Mr. Mayor, it will exceed the number.
I was asking, is that something you can enact, or if that needed approval from this body? It sounds like, that's what I was asking the town manager. Is this something that you guys can approve in your department?
On the number itself,
Well, the fee, the $30 and the
It's an arbitrary number. It can be set at any number you want. I just felt I tried to coincide with neighboring towns to keep Wethersfield
okay.
consistent.
And that's your department decision?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Good. I think I understand that. Makes
Okay.
sense.
Thank
you. Before we go to the next item on our agenda, does anybody have any more questions of the building department, of Sean? Yes.
I actually
Councilor
do have-
Carbone.
Hi, how are you
Hello, I'm
tonight?
good. How are you?
Thank you. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
So I'm listening to you talk about the potential for 2,800 permits coming in, but, because I had a question about the number of permits based on this chart, and I know there's lots of weird charts and graphs in here, that seems to be going down. That 24, 25 was at, residential was 1,258, commercial was 124.
I'm sorry, I don't know.
Total.
Are you on the?
I'm on page 145, and unless
Oh,
I'm...
145, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
I'm sorry. And even it says the total cost evaluation for building, electrical, plumbing, blah, 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 for fiscal year 2025, this is partial, is at $25 million.
Correct, yeah, that's only a partial number. So what Debbie was working on earlier today was to anticipate, the numbers that we have are reflective, and actually Debbie brought it current up to date, today's date.
Okay.
And what we have for this fiscal year is 1,837 permits. That's as of April 29th, 2025. So what we did to keep it kind of consistent is we took numbers from the previous year and added permits on for May and then June. So at least it would encapsulate the entire fiscal year. And when we did that, that would add on another 792 permits because we're in those months that we get quite a few permits coming in.
Warmer weather.
Exactly, very busy this time of year.
Okay.
So that brings us to, for fiscal year 2025, we anticipate, again, because May and June are a number that we kind of know, but we have to guess somewhat at, we would guesstimate at 2,629 permits issued for fiscal year 25.
Okay.
And when I look at statistically, that's where I came up with the 5 to 7% increase year to year. There's always that fluctuation, but overall it seems to be holding in that pattern. And that's where the number 2,800 came from
Okay.
for the total permits for fiscal year 2026.
That you're anticipating.
Councilor Carbone?
No, that's good. Thank you. I
Thank you.
appreciate that.
Thank you.
So this is just, maybe we shouldn't have put that graph in there. That's okay.
Yeah, it was tough to gauge it, but we
Yeah.
tried to decipher as best as possible, just to try to make it a little clearer to take an actual fiscal year to provide some clarity to it.
Okay, and then actually, just also in clarity, so is the assistant building official, right? Now I'm on page 148.
Yep.
So that person, nothing's changing in their role, and that's just an increase. So is that contractual? It's an over 10% increase in 1 year for their salary. I was just curious.
Now, is that from the proposed, the budget 2020,
Yeah.
24 to 25 up to the proposed?
Yes.
So that number, where we would be starting the assistant building official is under that number. I think that number is reflective of step paid increases by the time fiscal year ends. That is projected to be where an assistant building official could be.
Okay, that's a great answer. Thank you.
Yep.
And also the HDC coordinator.
Yes.
Did we talk about that yet? Did I miss out on that conversation? Sometimes I'm thinking about other things. Now they're also salary, it almost doubles there. So are you anticipating them doing more hours? Obviously, they're probably like a part-time position.
Correct. It is it's a combination of both. It is a combination of an increase in pay as well as hours. Kim Wolf does a great job with the Historic District. She is just inundated with, when she started, I just spoke with her today just to get a rough idea. When she started 7.5 years ago, she was guesstimating under 100 applications a year. She's well over 150 now. So definitely more time needed between preparing for meetings, minutes, doing everything she does in conjunction with everything that she does within the building department itself.
And I'm going to assume, too, that you'll be part of any building, when we do the school, if we get the school referendum passed. that correct?
Absolutely.
So that will be
Yeah.
increase your workload as well?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, just anticipating. Great,
Thank you.
thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Carbone. Further council questions for the building department? Seeing none, Sean, thank you.
All right.
Debbie, thank you.
Thank you all. Have a good
Appreciate it.
evening.
Thank you.
Did great.
Next up, we have the library, which looks like you brought a lot of supporters, Brooke. A lot of fans. Yeah. Thank you for all the library board folks who are out tonight in support. Thank you for coming.
Get a-
Thank you again, Sean. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Yep.
Yes, of course.
Brooke, when you're ready, you may begin.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Mayor. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Town Council, for inviting us here this evening. I'd like to recognize,
Hey, Brooke?
Yes.
Excuse me. If you can talk into the microphone so everybody at home who's watching can hear you, and
absolutely.
thank you.
I'd like to recognize the library board members present. Krista Michaels joins me as chairman of the board. Tracy Gianfrido is vice chair, is sitting here. Johnny Moore Dotson, Chris Colby, and Scott Wands are here this evening. And if I've missed anybody, I just missed them. I don't think I did. The mission of the Wethersfield Library is to provide a welcoming community gathering place with free and open access to resources and experiences that engage the imagination, inspire learning, and promote the exchange of ideas. We do this by providing the information, educational, and recreational needs for the Wethersfield community, either through materials, services, or experiences. Like the town, we too have a strategic plan that we are quite proud of. We have 5 strategic initiatives that I believe complements the town's strategic priorities. These are satisfy curiosity and stimulate the imagination, support young learners and their families, celebrate diversity, be an informed citizen, and visit a comfortable place. Up on the screen, you'll see highlights over the previous fiscal year. Over 200,000 items borrowed, over 20,000 reference questions asked, over 19,000 times the library's computers and Wi-Fi network were accessed. There's over 11,000 card holders. We have over 17,000 items were ordered for the library's collection, that's print and non-print, and over 96,000 patrons visited the library in the previous fiscal year. How do we stack up? Here's an example. We're just starting to do the comparatives, so this is one that I could pull together very quickly. Wethersfield Reads. It's great. It's absolutely fabulous. We had over almost 11,000 people attending over 400 programs, either live, virtual, or self-directed programs for all ages. We serve cradle to the grave. Our 2025 highlights, most recently, in January, the library went fine-free. We're very excited about this. And so it's just been fabulous. It's been very well received by the Wethersfield community. In March, we, in collaboration with other town departments, the Board of Ed, was the Human Library, a place for meaningful conversations with individuals you may not necessarily encounter in your everyday today. So it's a wonderful day-long event. A couple of weeks ago, we just installed Story Walk. And by that, I mean the Physical Services Department installed that. And this was paid through mostly private donations, most notably from the Wethersfield Beautification Trust and the Friends of the Wethersfield Library. And some of you were able to attend that, so that was just fabulous. Last weekend, we did have our Friends book sale, so thank you to those who either volunteered, purchased, and supported the Friends. They were able to bring in over $7,000, so that's great. We're getting ready for our summer reading, and so we're looking for that. This year's theme is Level Up at your library. And finally, what's coming forward in the next year is the library's redesign project. This is with state bond money. It's very exciting. This summer, we will be coming for you to approve construction management services. And I'd really like to thank Fred and his staff, in particular Vlada and Sally, for helping with this project in the library's building committee on this and moving this forward. And so this is an example of what you're seeing as a floor plan with a teen area. A lot of the impetus for this is that any day of the week we can get, in the school year, we can get, say, 50 wonderful Silas Deane Middle School students coming into the building. Fun time had by all. And they're in 600 square feet. I'm really glad the building official just walked out of the room. So we're expanding, more than doubling their space, and making it a very active place. Right now, they just do not have enough room. Today we had a program, and we had like 7 or 8 kids in a program downstairs. I don't even know what they were doing at Silas Deane Middle School, and I had 10 or 15 kids just in the teen area. They're sitting on the floor. There's just not enough chairs, and there's a handful on the computers. All really great activities. There just isn't enough room. And the town is offering great programs from Parks and Rec and from Social and Youth Services, and there's just too many of them. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. So trying to give them more space for a hangout location. And here's an example. And again, these are renderings. I want to preference that. And this is what, underneath the mezzanine of the library, currently where the DVDs, the CDs, new books are, this is what it potentially will look like. So very excited about that. We face some challenges in the library world. Funding. The Institute for Museum and Library Services at the federal level is gone. For all intents and purposes. They would send money to the state library that we could then apply for grants. And we were waiting to kind of see how it's going to impact the state library and the trickle down to the local level. But I do anticipate it's going to possibly affect our transit. As they rob Peter to pay Paul, we may be losing some ability to have the delivery service maintained at its current level. The library's consortium has supplementary. We may have to ramp that up. I pay almost not just under $40,000 a year to be a member of a consortium, and we've had supplemental delivery in addition to what the state library has been providing. So we are worried about that. Professional development will be likely impacted. So it's kind of just a wait and see. We don't really receive direct federal dollars. When Wethersfield Library last did, it was for ARPA money, and say it was around 2021, and we received $20,000. We got drinking fountains, which were very well received. We got new tables, a charging station, all things that we needed, but that was the last time. So it's been a while, but funding and then difficult decisions that will have to be made as other federal cuts and how that might affect the library world as tough decisions have to be made. Other challenges that the library world faces is censorship. No one's banging on the library board's door to ban any particular book recently. And it can also, as I have up there, an opportunity to have a meaningful exchange with patrons over books and concern that may exist. If you've read the Hartford Courant, and what's going on in Suffield is just off the hook ridiculous. And I'm very appreciative of my well-trained staff. I'm appreciative of the Wethersfield community. I'm very appreciative and for their willingness to come in and have a discussion, which has proved very helpful. I'm very appreciative of a very supportive library board, and I know sometimes previously, not recently, where members of the public have reached out to council, and that members of council have reached out to me and we've responded. So I am very grateful for a supportive community in regards to that. But you never know. And artificial intelligence, challenge and an opportunity. We don't know what we don't know. Everybody involved in artificial intelligence is signing NDAs left, right, and center. I think I get very worried about the library world. I also get worried about how this will affect, potentially affect the economy in general, and what that means for working individuals, and the impact on jobs. And I think it's going to happen. I'm not a futurist, but I think it's happening a lot faster than the world is ready for. And I get, ethical concerns about that. And yeah, so, but part of this presentation was put also together with artificial intelligence. But as government employees, we have to be very careful what we're putting in, and it's only as good as the data that you input in. So, okay. So he's going to raise that up. In terms of budget, we're referring to the budget book that you have. And I don't know what part this is in. Our projected, I mentioned that we were going fine-free, but we still collect some fees, and this is primarily copier and printer fees. Our proposed budget revenue estimate for fiscal year 25-26 is $3,000. And even going fine-free, my projection for the current fiscal year was $3,500. I believe we've hit that already. And so, and in terms of fine-free, that does not include museum passes. For anybody listening, that does not include museum passes or items that are lost or damaged. So we still bring in revenue for that. Capital money, our ask for capital is the front doors. We believe they're nearing end of life, our automatic front doors. And so that, I believe that total was at $30,000. We're desperately trying to get that worked into the larger project. And so we've gotten a quote for that and are adding it into the bigger project. But the front doors aren't going to make it another decade. And I would, I can't speak for the town hall doors, but there's the same doors and a lot of snow, a lot of traffic, a lot of opening and closing. They can only last so long. So, that's our capital ask. And if I go to the budget book, and so I'm looking at page 241. We are coming in just under, or just over under $50,000 from the current fiscal year. This is primarily due to the pension being removed from our budget and being placed elsewhere. The salary increases, so the town went to implemented a class and compensation, a new class and wage chart, as you will, based off a class and compensation study that was done, and adjustments were accounted for starting this current fiscal year, and that's been implemented in across the board. Employee insurance, health insurance, and that we realize that will continue to rotate around. The pension being removed is removed. Defined contribution is in there. Workers' comp has ticked up a little bit. Numbers are pretty flat. from the previous fiscal year. What has ticked up a tiny bit is our tech support services. That includes our ebooks, so going from 166 in the current fiscal year to 170, and doing that, and then trying to make sure that we're always aligned with whatever is necessary for cyber insurance, which is a huge thing. So this past year, we did a huge move towards upgrading our email system. And so we have a new email system, which is fantastic. So that's happened. But we anticipate an increase in cost in ebooks, primarily in that line. This also includes our consortium membership, which is a shared catalog, as well as our contracted IT, which provides us with 7-day-a-week service, which is great. Custodial services remains the same. I think we're on I'm going to look at Mike O'Neill. I think we're on year 3 of the contract for custodial. This is the beginning of the 3rd year. Yeah. Telephone and communications is coming down as voice over IP continues to play out. Our costs are decreasing. We still have to maintain some analog lines for fax and whatnot, but the costs are starting to come down in our department budgets for that. And our internet connection remains flat, and they do not anticipate a change in that. Office machinery services, this is our current self-check machines. And in addition, it is an $11,000, over an $11,000 increase for new copiers and new printers that are rolling out. And we pay for each machine, but ideally, it's going to help lower toner costs across the entire organization. But will be billed back for each machine that we have, and so we're consolidating equipment. But hopefully, in the long term, that will achieve a savings there. So it is anticipated to be so, and I'm very thrilled to be part of that project. Our current copier won't do double-sided, it won't do color, it won't do, and it's beyond end of life. It's over 20 years old, and it's a clunker, but it works. And so we're pleased to be able to offer scanning capabilities, offer the public a little bit more. So that's long overdue. And we appreciate the finance department working with us on that. So we hope to have that implemented in the new fiscal year. Specialized agency supplies, a lot of these are remaining the same. We do tick up in library books and other media. Printing costs are going up. Some of this, things like cookbooks are printed in China. They are subject to tariffs. Cookbooks are among our most popular items. And even though people get a lot of recipes online, a lot of people also check out cookbooks. So that's just an example. There isn't so much, I think there's maybe a reduced tariff on children's book. There's no tariff, I believe, on religious books. And so trying to play these dynamics or to even attempt to keep track of it is interesting. IT, we have our IT equipment, so replacement computers and whatnot. We're buying a bunch at the end of this fiscal year as part of our regular cycle of life for the machines, which we've kind of put off because the pandemic, there was less use. Now we're having increased use. So it's time to start replacing those machines, and we're anticipating getting new equipment, other types of new equipment, as part of the renovation project. So anything we could put into the renovation project, we'd put in there. And so that's our ask is $2,196,689. Trying to think if there's any questions.
Thank you, Brooke. I appreciate the thoroughness of your report. And now we will open it up for council questions and comments. Councilor Bailey.
I just have two. The first one is page 241, the salaries.
Yes.
Those are pretty significant. Is that all on the town study?
Yes. Yeah.
And the second is on the next page, 242. IT equipment software went down by 50%, and the machinery services went up 50%. Can you just get into that for a second?
Yes, so the office machinery equipment is two items. It's the service contract, which is about, say, $10,000 for our current self-check equipment, which we're going to need for the next year until the new equipment comes in, which is part of which you funded,
Yeah.
which we have the funding for the replacement, but we're timing it with the renovation, if
All
that
right, so
makes
that
sense.
10,000 is in addition to?
That's in addition.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's 10,000, and then the other, which is new, is the 11,000 for the brand-new copier and printers that are being deployed, I want to say town-wide, but on the town side. So it's at the police department, town hall, and then we'll be the last to be implemented.
Understood.
Yeah, so those are the difference. And then the IT equipment and software is like a new PC, or new, yes, something like that.
It's just significantly down.
Yes, and part of that is because I anticipate making a purchase in this current fiscal year that will kind of get us through some of that, as well as anything that I can slip into the library redesign project, because that includes equipment. I'm getting into that project.
Makes sense, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Bailey. Further council questions or comments? Counselor Carbone.
Hi, thank you so much. I love that you did you went line by line. Nobody's done that yet except for you, and I love that. Thank you. It was very helpful because you answered some of my questions already out of the gate. And I have to say, this is my third budget, I think, with you. With my experience with you, you've been here longer than that, but, and you do a great job of trying to keep it pretty even, so I appreciate that. I do have questions also about the salaries.
Yep.
So I don't know, was it, and when you say it was part of a survey, can you explain that a little bit? Because I'm sure I'm not the only one that has a lot of questions.
So there's the class and compensation study. So if I misspoke, I apologize. And so a couple of years ago, the town did a class and compensation study. I'm just going to look at Fred in case I misspeak, and he'll chime in. Yes?
Okay, he can,
And so that was a couple of years ago, and I believe they've slowly been implementing that as contracts have come up and have looked to it. The custodians, I think, were first, and now in the libraries, we were one of the next contracts to open, and so we looked at that and whatnot, and so.
you're trying to get the salaries to be at a more, maybe you could answer
Yeah, so
that.
class and compensation study looks at like communities in the region and position by position. And what we do are most of the positions. So if there's like a, maintainer 1, 2, and 3, they'll look at one of those and they'll extrapolate the others based upon the levels of the position. But they look across the board at our positions and then say, this is where we're at, this is where the market's at, and they create a minimum and a maximum and a midpoint, and they recommend to us what the scale should be to stay market competitive. And several are, although we were good in many positions, we were way off in others. So like, and as an example, the custodians were way off. We were losing custodians constantly to other towns because we were so far off. So their contract came up first. We adjusted them with the last year's budget. The library was next, and they had several positions as well that were pretty far off. So we took
Below market value. if
yeah.
you
So
will.
we
Okay.
made the effort to make sure that in order to keep employees, that we're at least paying them, and basically we targeted the midpoint. So we need to be competitive. So that's what we did with them. And as the other contracts have come up, we've done similar things. So it was a big lift if
The
we were to
big
do
jump this
everything.
year, but it'll slow, next year won't
Yeah,
be quite
the
so
goal is
high.
gradually
Okay.
we get it implemented, because to do it all at once would have been overwhelming, but over
So I'm
time.
looking at these numbers thinking, I'd like to be in a librarian now, so.
So, and I just want to clarify a couple things.
Yeah,
Two of
please.
the positions on here, and I don't know what lines they are, one is a librarian, one is a library associate.
Okay.
Those are moving from 35 to 37 and a half. So that's a couple of, if you see a bigger jump on one of those
I
those
did,
two
yes,
lines,
yeah.
one of the librarians is moving from 35 to 37 and a half. The other, the library associate, is moving from 35 to 37 and a half.
Okay,
In
that makes
addition, line 14 is described incorrectly. This is my fault. 14, that is not a part-time position.
Okay.
That is a full-time position, and it's been that way for a number of years at this point. So that's my fault for having that incorrectly described.
Thank you for answering those before, because those were some part of my ask. The next thing, and maybe I missed it too, was other. I'm not sure, because from last year you have 43,000 for other, and this year it's empty. So I was just curious, like, did you incorporate that into salaries this year? What was that?
So that was when we go into negotiations, which was last year, effective July 1st, we have to put a money, and I work with Fred and Erica on this, of what should the number be in order for pay increases when you're in the middle of negotiations. So you don't necessarily show your hand. They know where I hide it now in the budget. It's in the other line. It's got to be somewhere.
Great.
But we put it somewhere, and because I'm a separate appropriation, the library, it needs to be reflected in my budget.
Okay. And so that got absorbed back into
That got-
our positions.
yeah.
Okay, I was just curious about that. Thank you. And then you mentioned something about IT, that you had a contract out with IT. So that's not our IT. So is that something that we could do in-house?
No.
No.
Hard no.
Really? Okay.
No.
Okay.
It costs me, for the coverage I receive for the amount of equipment, I'm paying, say, $30,000 a year, or, and I get 7-day-a-week service. The priority for IT is going to be the police department,
Sure.
then town hall, then me, because no one's coming to reset my Wi-Fi on a Sunday. And so I like the spirit of shared services. I want to be close enough to feel the warmth and love and not get burned. And so it is well worth it. And Mike and I occasionally have this conversation, but
I thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got it. Thank you. I'm
yeah.
good.
And we do utilize their expertise. They're going to help with the deployment of the copiers and printers. I have a technology librarian who can take care of a lot in-house. And so a lot of my stuff are fairly tech savvy. So before we even place a call to Novus, we've kind of gone through a lot of what we can go through to make things happen.
I just remembered one more question. The door, is that something you can tie into the renovation?
We're trying to.
Okay.
We're trying to.
All right. Thank you. I'm all set.
Thank you, Councilor Carbone. Further council questions or comments? I have a couple. First, we start with the comments. Love the library. Thank you for what you do and for all the library board members, what they do. I'm so excited that you've gone fine-free. I'm very good at taking out books, and I take out a lot of books. Not always good about bringing them back on time. So you could have maybe financed a new wing with my fines, but I appreciate it. But more importantly, I think the community will appreciate that.
We only pass silent judgment.
Also,
But there's judgment.
There's judgment.
I'm also
That was funny.
also very happy to see the proposed renovation. I've been in the library several times between 2:30 and 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and with the influx of middle school students, and it does take over the library, and there's a lot of, I'll say, energy and noise in that area, and I think it will benefit everybody to have a separate area, separate wing. My questions are twofold. One is on the library sorter that the council approved last year, and we can tell us where we are with that. And then secondly, I want to get into, just for a minute or two, the book purchasing, because I know that's a big part of what the library does. And I'll further that question, but why don't you talk for a minute about the sorter? And I know we have other departments waiting, but we want to catch a couple of these things.
So the sorter, materials handling, the automatic materials handling, we've met with 3 companies that do this. We're going to go visit and look at some actual units that are being utilized, but we're nearly ready to make a decision on that. which the architect and engineer would be very appreciative, so they know how big to cut a hole through this one wall is going to be. But that's kind of where we are in the process. So we've made some movement, and so we're fortunate that we're going to be able to get pricing from the Connecticut Library Consortium.
That's coming this year?
I
know
would
we
say
approved
it's
it last
coming.
year.
The materials will probably have 2 new self-check machines sooner than we will have the materials handling, because that's anticipated to be the last phase of the project.
Got it. So my last question is on the purchase of books, and I see it's around 100,000, and I've seen it's varied a little bit over the last 4 or 5 years. And this is part of the lifeblood of the library, getting new books and all that. My question is, and maybe you're not aware of this, is that fairly consistent amount with libraries our size, maybe in Connecticut, where they're spending roughly $100,000 to replenish, purchase new books on an annual basis? Is that number low? Is it high? Is it middle? Do you have any sense of that?
So when I started here, we were at 134.
134,000.
And so we've actually, as a library, have kind of cut back on that over the years. Always with my mindset anyway, is we want to have breadth, depth, and how can we do this without harming the Wethersfield community? And so nonfiction in particular is being utilized in a very different way than it was, say, 20 years ago. And so, and we're trying to, so that people aren't reading, we're still purchasing a ton of biographies. People aren't reading them quite at the same rate or utilizing them in the same way as before, because they may just want a quick fact that they can find online, which is fine. I anticipate reducing our nonfiction collection a certain percentage after the renovation. And so, and it's still, the mindset is least amount of harm that we're doing. But to recognize information is being utilized very, very differently than it previously was. Magazines are killing themselves, and so we don't even have to cut because they just cease publication. And so that's, and then CDs, we're spending less on CDs, spending less on DVDs. And so, but that's the trend that society has moved in with streaming and whatnot.
Understood. Thank you. That's it for me. Does anybody have any?
Oh.
Yep, Councilor Dirk.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for a detailed presentation. I'll be quick. As far as the front door, keep coming back on the front door. Is that more preventive, or the door is already having issues, or where do we stand with that?
The doors have issues.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then as far as you said about $10,000, the contract for the self-checkout machine. When we get the new one, do we have an idea if you're going to be paying that fee? Is it going to be more or less?
That's something that we're asking for them when they present the pricing of what that will be for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. And Mike will help me with a chart of some sort to help evaluate what it is.
And the reason I'm asking is I'm hoping it's going to be a lot less because it's going to be something brand new. Hopefully
Yeah.
we wouldn't need so much service. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Dirk. Any further council questions or comments? Thank you to the library.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate all of you being here tonight. Doing pretty well. We're a few minutes behind schedule. Eric, I know you've been here for a while. Thank you for your patience. And we have Social and Youth Services up next.
No.
231 and 232, everybody. Welcome, Erica.
Thank you.
Great to see you, and when you're ready, we're ready.
Okay, wonderful. So thank you for having me. Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and Town Council members. I did leave a nice pamphlet brochure of our department at each of your locations up there, and as well over here. So if you guys want to take a look, I won't waste time and go through it, but there's some good information there and some programs and events that you might learn something new about what we do in our department. I just want to start off and introduce myself. So I'm Erica Texera. I am the new Director of Social, Youth, and Senior Services for the town of Wethersfield. I'm very excited about that, so thank you all. So I just want to go over the Department of Social, Youth, and Senior Services is responsible for assisting residents with social, emotional, and economic needs and the coordination of resources to improve the quality of life. I just want to make note that the department staff work tremendously hard every day. So I just want to point that out, that they're, working with residents that are struggling daily, and from what we know, the struggle is going to get a little more difficult in the upcoming year, given just the economy, inflation, cuts from the federal government that we're seeing come down to the most needy of our population. So I just want to put that out there to begin the presentation. Would we like to start with the memo or go through?
Preference. The departments have done either. I think Councilor Carbone likes the line item approach, but
You do whatever you want, and then I'll ask questions. It's fine. Whatever makes you
Perfect.
comfortable.
Okay. Well, I won't go line by line, but we'll go with the highlights if that works, and then feel free to ask any questions. So you will see that in the full-time salaries, there is increases due to the union contracts and the director retirement that recently just happened in January. You will also see a new full-time position, the prevention coordinator, that is being put into the budget for the first time this year. This position has actually been around since 2021, when we received the Drug-Free Community Grant. And this year, Fred and Erica thought it'd be a good idea, and I agreed to put it into the budget and show that it's 100% offset with grants and other funding. So just to give you a little information about that position, we were awarded a drug-free community federal grant in the end of 2020. It's a 5-year grant. We're currently in year 5 of that grant. It was scary for a little bit because the grant was delayed in coming out, so we weren't sure, because of everything that was going on with the federal government, if we were going to get that grant. But this position is critical to our department and the youth service portion of our department. So we had looked at some other options to continue funding it with other funding opportunities, whether it be some other prevention grants we get, and as well as the municipal opioid settlement dollars as well. We did get word recently that the grant did come out, so we're super excited about it, and we're in the process of applying for that grant. And we hope that we get it, but it is a competitive grant, and just because we got year 1 through 5, there's no guarantee that you'll get year 6 through 10. And we also will not find out probably until about September at this point. So just wanted to give you a little bit of that background. FICA and all the other benefits, health insurance, those are all increases that I'm sure you guys are fully aware of, that we have no control over. We did add a little bit of extra funding in staff training, conferences, CEUs. It kind of covers a lot of items in that area, but we've seen costs go up tremendously, and we've also know that we want to be able to provide our staff with adequate training on new programs that are coming out. We do want to encourage continuing staff to get certified in different programs or specialties, so they all come with a cost and lengthy training, unfortunately, but it is to better the department. As well as just some of like the CEUs and licensures, those have all gone up as well. You will also see our dial-a-ride budget increased. We are in year 3 of a 3-year contract, and we just went out to bid and we awarded the contract for another 3 years to Ambassador. That was approved a couple months ago. So with that, the cost of each trip and rides have gone up just due to the economy and the cost of gasoline and all, and minimum wage costs. So you will see that increase. Support services, we have a slight increase there as well, and that is to follow along with being able to support our programming for a lot of our youth, as well as our clinical. We don't do any in-house clinical, so we do a lot of intensive case management and refer out. So we also would like to offer support and residents that are underinsured or facing financial hardships with high cost deductibles to try to get them, if they're in crisis situations, to get services provided to them. Am I going too fast, or can I keep going?
Keep going.
Good? Okay.
Good well.
Great,
Thank you.
very well.
Our senior center program. So this is a big topic this year. I think a lot of our seniors have found their voice, and they're speaking with many folks in town, which I think is great. Our senior center is doing wonderful things, and it continues to do wonderful things, but it's limited in what it can do with the amount of staff. And I know you guys have heard the space situation as well. But nonetheless, our coordinator does a wonderful job with what she has, and she's offering new things, as well as our part-time staff there, and they're very creative, and we're trying to think outside of the box to get some of those younger seniors involved at the senior center. And a lot of our stuff runs through volunteers there, so we have a very supportive population that attends, but also gives back to the senior center. So you'll see there's a small increase there just because cost of everything has gone up, and including food and program costs, and we want to support continue to have additional staffing there to support our coordinator. So with that, we would like to be able to maintain what we're offering, or try to at least maybe increase some of that as well. Do you guys have any questions on that? Or any of the budget stuff?
When you finish the
Okay.
presentation, we'll open it up for questions. So
Perfect.
Erica, just keep going, doing great.
So you will see that we have requested positions. Did that memo come over? I believe so. So the prevention coordinator, we kind of already spoke about. That is in the budget, but it's 100% showing an offset for that. We have a part-time program specialist that is housed here in our department downstairs. That position supports all of our basic needs assistance. So a lot of work with our food programs, the food bank, mobile food share, weekend meals, summer meal program, as well as the day-to-day, situations that, that come across in our department. So it's been extremely helpful to have an extra person part of the time to respond to a lot of the increased needs that we're seeing. As well as we have made a request for a senior center program specialist. We currently have 2 individuals working part-time basis each to support the senior center needs and to provide programming and to assist our coordinator there. We were lucky enough to get an ARPA grant right from the state to our senior center, and we were able to hire those part-time staff. But of course, the funding only allowed us to utilize it through December of this past year. So they're still currently working at the senior center. We were able to extend it out, but as of June 30th, we would need them to be put in the budget to support continuing efforts at the senior center. So that is a huge ask in our department, because we feel that the need is great. The seniors have felt that it's been a tremendous help to their day-to-day activities there, and they've been responding very well to the staff that we have, and would like to continue seeing that. We have no CNEF requests, no CIP requests, but I do just I know I shared a little bit in the beginning, but just some of our department focus that we've seen, highlights over the last year that they're not something we don't want to be seeing these things, but these are what we're seeing. A lot of homeless situations, a lot of crisis calls. We partner a lot with the PD on situations with all ages, all demographics. So we're seeing that uptick. Mental health, behavioral health, substance use, that is all staying pretty consistent, and we're seeing increases with that as well. Our food bank operations, we noticed that individuals that used to donate are not able to donate as much just because the cost of food has gone up tremendously, And we've also seen new residents that need to utilize the food bank, which is what we're there for. But we just need to be mindful of that, and we're responding to it. And it is, our food bank runs 100% on donations, and this community is extremely generous. So I just want to say thank you to everyone for that, because I know all of you belong to different communities and groups and initiatives that have all supported the food bank. And right now, that it's really needed at this time. Our Human Rights and Relations Commission has actually taken on the initiative to food as a basic need, so is looking at ways that they can continue to support that over the next year, so we're really excited. But we all know that the cost of living and basic needs have gone up tremendously, and that is really affecting some of our residents that were already struggling prior to this. And of course, the federal cuts to our most vulnerable population here. There's a lot we don't know, and we're waiting to get clarification and, what's next, but it's a waiting game, and we have to, be prepared, as many of our state reps have shared, that it doesn't look good for a lot of that population. So I just want to be mindful and keep that present here. I think I can stop right now.
Great job, Sue. Thank you,
Thank
Erica.
you.
And at this point, I will open up it to the council for questions and comments. And Councilor Durek, you're up first.
Yeah, and then
Thank you,
we'll
Mayor.
go, yeah.
Thank you, Erica.
Thank you.
Just a quick question on the full-time senior center program specialist.
Yes.
Are we getting rid of the 2 part-time and hiring a full-time, or what's?
So actually, I know it's a little confusing. So the 2 part-time would like to stay. They love being at the senior center. They love what they do. They're passionate and they're great at what they do. They would actually like to stay. Right now, they're working about 25 hours combined. We just want to increase those hours to 37.5, so equivalent to a full-time person.
It was still keeping 2 part-time people just combined as a full-time position?
And increasing them up to a combined full-time position.
Okay.
It worked out wonderful that they would like to continue, so that's
Sure.
great.
And then for the prevention coordinator, since it's in the budget, God forbid we don't get the grant, we're on the hook to pay for it?
So we have actually brainstormed and looked at different avenues that we can support it that wouldn't hit the budget through other grants that we can kind of work right into them as the grant process starts for some of other prevention grants, but also we have the municipal opioid settlement dollars as well. That is what they were there for. They're, for prevention efforts, prevention, recovery, and, resources for drug abuse and back in that sense, so.
One way or the other, you think we're going to get reimbursed or?
Yes.
It'll be necessary. Okay.
Our
Thank you.
fingers crossed that we get the grant.
Thank you.
And the opioid settlement money is actually, we already have enough to cover if we needed to cover for this year, and we're anticipating more coming in over the next year or two as well, as settlements continue to be finalized.
They're actually speaking that it might be over the next, 15-plus years that settlement dollars will be coming in. And we do have a good amount now that would sustain beyond even just the prevention position for this year.
Thank you, Councilor Durek. Further council questions? Councilor Bailey.
I just have one. You said you were renewing the contract for Dial-A-Ride?
Correct.
That's up 90,000 in 4 years.
What was that? Oh, yeah, that's when it was offset with ARPA money, correct? So we didn't put it in the budget. That's where it's looking off there.
Okay.
It hasn't increased that much.
It hasn't
Just offset
increased.
it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor Bailey. Deputy Mayor Forrest.
Thank you, Mayor. I was really interested in the discussion regarding the food bank, which I think is downstairs and may even be taking over one of the conference rooms if I saw just yesterday.
I cannot confirm or deny that.
Which, by the way, is a positive thing. I'm staying here because that means there's a lot of food that had to be transferred and stored into a conference room, so that's very positive. But obviously there are, and you've told us this for years now, right? There's a cohort of families that use the food bank on a regular basis. Generally fair, accurate?
They're beyond families. There's a lot of senior citizens as well, yes. Households.
I guess I was including them households, right?
Sure, households. Yes.
I wasn't trying to be very technical, but thank you for the clarification. And so that, of course, I understand is there's a lot of, there's some private donations, probably some corporate donations, probably some even in-hand like food donations that all sort of contribute to that effort. Generally accurate so far?
Yes.
Okay. And also imagine that there are sort of ebbs and flows. Maybe during the holidays you get a lot of donations versus maybe in the summertime perhaps less. Is that also generally accurate?
Yeah. Yep, absolutely.
Are there, so get to like, now that we set the stage here, are there times when we don't have enough food to feed the families that are in need, that qualify?
No.
We always have enough food.
But we always have enough food. You'll see sometimes we run low on items, but since we get monetary donations, we're able to go out and supplement with that.
So, is it fair to say, and I'm asking the question, that no family in Wethersfield, if they want to use the food bank, is ever turned away food so that they are hungry?
They are never turned away.
And they all will always, every family so far, I know that tomorrow could be a new day.
Sure.
But so far, in Wethersfield, for all the families that need food, sustenance, support, we have supplies in order to provide it, so no family gets turned away.
We have been, but it's also not their main source of food. So we are able to provide like once a month pickups from the food bank. So it's to supplement what they're already, getting through either SNAP benefits or just from their own household income.
So is it an accurate statement then that if you choose as a family, there's no family that is hungry that doesn't have food? Not that we can be hungry in a particular hour, of course, of the day.
Well, so there's probably populations out there that don't know about the food bank that could be hungry, sure. But like I said, we only supplement. So we would not be able to sustain full households like monthly food by any means. So it's a difficult question. If anybody needs food.
It may be that people have they may have a job, they still may be able to purchase some food, but not all the food that, a particular family needs. But for whatever food the family needs, we do supply it. That's what I'm hearing, at least.
Well, not whatever they need. It's whatever we have, we are able to give them. So it's not like we have on demand of what they might need, but we try to support and supplement as best as we can, which usually looks like a once a month pickup from our food bank per household. And they typically get about 3 to 4 bags of food, if that helps paint a picture. And that includes toiletries and personal hygiene products that we're able to get as donations as well.
All right, thank you.
Just clarify something before I.
Sure.
We have a lot of families, though, that are considered food insecure. I think it's about 20% food insecure or hungry. We have about 20% of children. There are food bank opportunities, but we have families that are classified, categorized as food insecure, hungry.
Yeah.
But we have resources.
But we have resources in order so that they aren't hungry.
We can discuss that more, but.
Well, that's what I'm asking, and
But,
it sounds like we do.
well,
We not?
If I may, Erica, let me just understand this. They don't get enough food to feed the family. They only get some food to help them feed the family, correct?
Correct. We're supplementing on top of, we're not able to support a whole household of food on a monthly basis by any means, but it's an added support. So some of our residents utilize, their own financial from their jobs, but a lot of them might get SNAP benefits, which is the old food stamps.
Right.
But that does not mean they have enough to be comfortable in their food issues at home. They could be just maintaining with having a meal a day instead of having 3 meals a day. But it's a way of life for some people. That's real.
Under the SNAP, but collectively, do they have enough food? Because that's the difference, though. Like it's you may not support individually, but if they have that plus SNAP plus a job.
But all those other I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. I know you had your hand raised.
No,
All
I'm
those,
learning.
no, absolutely. All those other resources, they might not be eligible for. So what we have is, it's what the working poor too. So it's Alice families, the acid limited income constraint and employed. So they're working paycheck to paycheck. They're making minimum wage and not able to afford their cost of living. So they might on paper look like they're okay because the dollars don't match up to what the need really truly is for the federal, guidelines. And so they are the working poor who are living paycheck to paycheck but are not meeting their needs sufficiently.
Right, so then we kick in, and rightly so, to meet their needs?
Yes, but I'm saying some of those don't, they're not able to access like SNAP benefits because they don't meet the income guidelines. So that's actually that's actually a group that concerns me even more because they are the working poor, so they are making a little too much to qualify for certain benefits, but they're making not enough to support their basic needs at home.
So they come to the Wethersfield Food Bank. Do we supply them enough to meet, as you described, to meet their basic needs?
No.
Okay, how much more do we need to do that? That's what I'm trying to understand, I guess, at the end of the day here.
It's hard to tell. I mean, it would be a weekly, grocery shopping pickup for their family size. So, we go to the grocery store every week typically, right? Or bi-weekly, and you get enough food for your family. I'll speak for my own. There's 4 in my household, 2 small children. I'm probably spending easily $200 to $250 a week. It's crazy, right? But that could equate to $1,000 a month, which people don't have, and they have to make that tough decision. Am I paying my prescriptions? Am I paying my light bill? Am I gonna go and just have 1 meal instead of having 3 meals a day? So there's a lot of families that are making those sacrifices.
So if we wanted to improve the food bank to meet the needs of the community, what would we need to do?
We'd need bigger operations for that. We would need a big facility to house all that food. We would need extra staff to staff that. We would need the donations coming in. We would need to be able to have pickups for, hundreds of households every week. It's a great model to look at.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for the insight. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Forrest. Further council questions? Councilor Carbone.
Wow, I almost lost all my train of thought with that.
Sorry.
And no, total quick question regarding this as well. If somebody needed more assistance than once a month, is it possible that obviously
Yes.
not every week, but
Yes.
they could come more if they need?
Yeah, we do look at case by case, and that's why it's so important that they have the opportunity to meet with our social workers, because they meet with them one-on-one. If they're homeless, they have no income coming in, we could look at, supplying extra support throughout the month. But it's not something that we could just do across the board.
Yeah, that's great. And then I know we had given some funds through ARPA. Do you have any funds left in the kitty to supply food or to purchase?
The ARPA funds for the food bank?
Yes, for the
We
food bank.
utilized all those.
Yeah, it's all gone.
Yeah.
All right.
We
so-
utilized those.
Interesting. And then I was talking about positions in my head. So I think it's the positions on page 225 of the book that kind of don't line up with, I'm on the right one, right? The positions listed under the budget on 231. And I think that's what, for me, I'm struggling with. And then you said you're taking 2 part-time, bumping up their hours. So is that the Senior Center Program Specialist full-time position? That's actually 2 part-times that you're combining and increasing hours to make a full-time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So even though the salary would be 103 for that, we're paying for 2 part-time now, so it really shouldn't be a full 103 coming out of the budget, right?
I don't anticipate, if it stays as is, that it will be
Because I don't see
the full
part-times.
amount of that, because right now they're both working part-time hours, and which don't include some of the benefits as well.
Okay. But I couldn't imagine it being an extra, because you,
The 100,000 that you see on your page in the binder assumes a real full-time person with all the benefits together.
But that's what, not what this is.
That was what, that was what was put here. It's not really what Erica's looking for. Erica's
Okay.
looking for the two staff members that we have to stay on each.
Increasing slightly.
A total of 37 and a half hours.
Okay.
Full part-time, no benefits.
And where are those, Erica, in the budget? Did I not see their part-time?
They're not,
Okay.
they are not there at all, right?
They're not. They were requested positions.
Requested positions, they're not in
I
town
see.
manager's budget.
Okay, so they're, wait a minute, I'm so confused. So they're not working right now as a part-time?
No, they are working.
No, they are working right now.
And they, wait, who funded them last year?
So up to December, they were funded through ARPA.
Okay.
So through December, and then we came to the council.
Yes.
Prior to the end of December, asking for additional funds to extend them.
Through June.
Which
Okay.
is what they're working off of now. But they weren't in the budget last year.
Got it.
And they're not in the proposed budget as of yet. That's up to the council to determine how they want to deal with that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're very
If I
welcome.
have any more questions about that, I'll ask
Yeah.
Rick.
Yes.
Thank you, Counselor
thank you.
Carbone. Further council questions or comments? Counselor Rhodes?
I don't have any more questions because they've all been answered so far, but I want to just notice that you're here all by yourself this time. I love that that we finally made the move to separate out social and youth services. I feel like it is important enough to have its own department. So I'm just looking forward to opportunities to work with you.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm excited about it.
So a few comments and questions from me. First off, again, congratulations. We're excited.
you.
You're in the role. You've really earned this opportunity.
Thank you.
For the council and the public's benefit, the amount of work that Social and Youth Services does is amazing to help our most vulnerable citizens. I think you mentioned ALICE, Asset Limited, Income Constrained, Employed, fancy term for the working poor. I think the latest statistic we have is close to 30% of our
Correct.
residents are considered in that statistic. So we have a very significant vulnerable population with all kinds of needs, and thank you for all the work that you do for them. I want to kind of explore the positions a little more from the senior center. So are you able to, and this could be for Mike or Eric or Fred as well. So the two current positions that we have, the two people in those positions now, and I should just shout out, thank you for all the great work that you do as director, Amy. So those two current positions that we have now that are not funded, but the council could choose to fund them, is combined to go up to one position in terms of the dollars. I know that it doesn't completely add up. My question is, the council does nothing, those positions are out, if you guys get that. But if we keep them where they are, and this is the question, in the positions they are, at the hours they work now, do we know what that is in the budget?
Is that the 103?
No, it's much less than that, if I'm understanding this.
Yeah, Michael got it for you.
Like, do you have that, or?
No, he'll get it for you.
So if we wanted to keep those two individuals doing what they're doing now, in the roles they're in, at the same hours, the same pay, there's a number for that. You'll get us, this is an increased number.
I would say roughly it would be close to 40,000.
So roughly less than half of this, but we would be able to retain them in the positions they're in and at the current level they're in, if I'm understanding this right, at 40 to 50,000. But I know you're going to get that, Mike.
Yep.
This is an increase to double that, roughly. But in the budget is zero of that. Is that all correct?
Correct.
I'd say it's probably closer to the difference between 50,000 and like 75 if you were to up their
So
hours.
if we did nothing, those
As a
positions would
guesstimate.
be eliminated,
Right.
correct?
Yeah.
If we did this proposal, we would be 100, or if we did what they were currently doing, it would be 40 to 50,000.
I think if you did what Eric is asking for right now, it would probably be closer to about 75, not 100. And if you do what they're currently doing, it's probably going to be between $45,000 and $50,000 to stay what they're doing right now.
And Erica, they would stay with what they're doing right now? would they want to stay with what they're doing right now?
They love what they're doing, and yes, they are well received by our seniors. I know Ken is there often. He speaks
You
with
have
them.
to tell everybody that, so I'm a member.
No, I
I'm
wasn't
just
meaning
kidding.
that way.
I am a member of the senior center. If you're 55 and older, it's 5, I don't think anybody else is, so maybe it's only me that's 55. Well, you don't have to raise your hands. I'm an old person. So if I'm 55 and older, it's $5 a year. It's a great bargain. They have tremendous programs, but this is important, and I do hear about this because I'm there a lot, and I do hear about this from the seniors. It's a council decision. I think everybody kind of understands where we're at with that. But Mike, if you can get us a little bit more the next day or two, numbers on that, that would be helpful.
I will mention, though, they are doing the 25 hours a week right now. Prior to, January, when they were covered by the ARPA grant, they were doing roughly, I would say, maybe 25 to 35 hours a week. And we really have seen that it's hard to just do it with just 25 hours. We really need additional support there. And our coordinator, Amy, who does a wonderful job, it's a lot. So they are making the senior center run smoothly and making our seniors happy. And, it's really what we're focusing on is having our seniors not isolated at home and engaged in the community.
Thank you, Erica. Mike, do you have something to add?
I do. So a rough figure is, I thought I had written it down. It's here. I'd say in the low 60s, like 62,000.
For,
So they're paying, the rate is $30 an hour. So if you take $30 an hour, 37 and a half hours, 52 weeks, that gets you about $59,000. And you got to throw FICA and Medicare on top of that. So say low 60s, 62,000, thereabouts.
Thank you. Just to clarify that, Mike, that would be
She's asking for it.
that
we're
would be what you're
asking.
asking for, and that would be obviously significantly lower than what's
Yeah,
actually.
there was a misunderstanding with that.
Under-
The 103 was a full-time position with medical benefits, and there's $30,000 in there for medical.
Would be for these folks,
Right.
and there would be 62, no benefits, it would be about 62,000. And do we have a sense as well, maybe it's what the town manager said, of what it would be if we keep doing what we're doing? Is that 40,000?
25 hours, Mike.
25 times 30. What is
That,
do the math, right?
Low 40s.
Yeah.
okay,
That's what I
so,
said, 45.
so we could go to 0, which is what's in the budget. We could go to the low 40s, which would be kind of what they're doing now, or we could approve 62,000, and that would have the two, roughly. Is that,
Roughly.
am I correct with that? Okay. Everybody got that on the council? Okay. So that's it for me. Does anybody else have any questions?
I do.
I do. Just so you all know, many seniors have asked me about this. I am there a few times, a lot, and they've asked me about this, so I'm trying to understand fully.
We're saying that it's not in the budget, but we're still paying for them.
Until June 30th.
Yeah, but there's nothing in here that says they even exist. Are there any more of these? In any other departments, are we gonna find more things that we've budget, not you guys, department, townwide?
So no, these are positions that were not in the budget previously. They were funded
Understood.
off budget, and so, and they were not proposed in the town manager's proposed budget, so that's why they're not in here. But we will show you, like we did here and like we did with engineering, every request, department request, you will see, and it's up to you if you want to put them in the budget.
We don't have to.
So there's no more of these? There's no more of these that aren't in the budget that we're gonna find out when they come and sit in front of us?
No, I told you, what I just said, there are, just like with engineering, if you have a department, I'm not sure what we have coming up, but I'm not sure if there's any more requests that we have in, physical services.
Well, there's requests, I get the requests.
Yeah.
I get the requests, but there's people in these positions
Correct, yeah,
that we
that's the
paid
only
for that is
situation.
not accounted for in the budget.
That's
Correct,
They're
yeah.
they're in the positions right now.
Yeah, they're in the position
Yeah.
It
right
wasn't
now.
funded through this budget.
Yeah.
It was
No, and I
funded-
get that. I just want to make sure that it's not just a continuous thing because they're not showing a savings. You know, we still paid for it.
Counselor Bailey, good? Yep. Anybody else for social and youth services? Eric?
I just want to highlight that We do have that part-time downstairs that I mentioned as well. Okay. The program specialist for roughly 20 hours, just to make note
That
of
one's
that.
in the budget, though.
So it's not.
No, it's
Not
not
that
in the
one.
budget.
No,
That has-
the
yeah,
the second one on the item, okay. Yep.
But we,
And these were all
Stand
results of the ARPA money that was then told that we could not extend it past December, even though there were some differences in that we should have been able to. But
Okay, good. Good discussion. If there's nothing else, then I will say thank you, Erica, appreciate it.
thank you.
And
thank you.
Have a nice evening.
You too. Thank you so much.
And we have capital and strategic initiatives next. Lotta?
Slowly clearing out. Good
Welcome, and whenever you're ready, you can begin.
Great, thank you. Second year attendee, first year presenter, new department, very exciting. So since this is a new department, I'd like to go over kind of what we do. I know you're familiar with me with requesting funding for grants, but just kind of want to talk about what those applications mean, the work that goes into just developing an application and scoping out projects. So in order to submit an application, we really have to understand what's going on. So figuring out what department has projects that need grant funding or any type of funding, what type of needs there are. So really understanding the capital projects that are happening across the organization, what's to come, and really developing kind of like a schedule of what we need to do. So once we figure out a project, often that means meeting with that specific department, if there's a grant opportunity available or not, trying to partner it with an opportunity, doing research to support that project, and really just scoping out the project itself. So sometimes that involves conducting feasibility studies like we're doing with the Pitkin project, like we did with the organics recycling facility. So that involves working with consultants at times, so needing funding for that. Also working with the agencies themselves that have the grant opportunities. That might be anything from just going to webinars and reading the notices of funding. Sometimes the funding notices range, over 100 pages. So really understanding what we need to present, how it needs to be presented, and what's the clearest way possible to do that. Understanding the data that we need to provide, understanding where to get that data, whether it's internal, external, what department has that data, who's the technical expert in that field. Again, is that internal, external, and then also, if available, meeting with those agencies and speaking to the project. I think doing that has helped us be successful in obtaining awards, really being efficient and direct in communication with agencies, both before being awarded as we work through the grant process, as we're going contracting, and then afterwards, which is quite time intensive, you can imagine. I'd also like to point out just the breadth of projects we work on. I had provided you with that capital and strategic initiatives spreadsheet. You do have a copy of this on pages, I believe it's 88 through 90 in the workbook, but I'd ask if you could refer to the handout that I provided, just because things do change so quickly. This is really the most up-to-date grant applications that we've submitted since.
Counselor, excuse me, was that your desk tonight? It looks like this if you haven't found it.
Yeah.
We
It's
got
about
it
4
tonight.
pages. So I'd like to just kind of take a look at that shortly, but just want to speak to quickly right now the breadth of projects that we work on. So really anything from corridor studies, tree management plans, structural assessments, chiller and air handler units, programs for camps for kids, trail maintenance equipment, solar canopies, EV chargers, parking and infrastructure developments, sidewalk gap closures, and that's only fiscal year '24. We'll look at '25 a little bit later, but when we dig into that. In addition to just to grant funding and looking at applications and submitting to that, we also have been working on developing a system for capturing and reporting on the strategic plan. So that's been rather intensive. We did our first presentation last quarter and looking to present one in a couple weeks in May to look at this Q3 of fiscal year 25. So that's exciting and looking to make that forward-facing as well for the public to be able to see. So that's taken quite a bit of time. The department also oversees the CIP process. During fiscal year 24, we supported ARPA projects and worked with the finance department pretty closely, as we do in general, just over the breadth of the other projects we work on. I'd also like to clarify that once we submit for grant funding, we do typically also oversee that project, or we support the projects that become the lead on that as well. So we don't just get rid of the grant after we, are awarded. There's also additional work that comes with that after. So all these projects you're seeing here, we support through the end, whether that be reporting, project management, continuing to be the liaison with the agency, or a breadth of other ways as well. Okay, so, and some items you're not seeing here, as Brooke mentioned, are that we support the library redesign project, Mill Woods project, data analysis across the organization as well, which is also really fun, but also can be time intensive, in addition to the projects that you see here that are capital related. Moving on to the budget, just kind of going by the line items, the two primary expense line items for the Capital and Strategic Initiatives Department are really salaries and the ask I have for funding for CIP projects and grant matches. That's really the two pieces that make up our budget, outside of some training and office equipment. And we'll dive into kind of the grant match needs a little bit later when we go through the projects and what's been awarded. Take a sip of water. I feel like I'm doing a lot of talking. Okay, now I think this is really the fun stuff. So key funding outcomes. I provided fiscal year 24 for you just to show kind of the length of time it takes to both submit for a grant application, then to be notified of award. So we submitted roughly 10 grant applications in fiscal year 24. And were awarded 8 out of those 10. I think that's a pretty good hit rate. And again, I mentioned kind of the breadth of those projects. To be supported 8 out of 10 with that large of a span of variety in projects, I think is pretty remarkable. So the high-level summary is that funding requests were roughly $11.4 million during fiscal year 24 to support total project costs of $16.2 million, where $5 million was awarded and $1 million roughly was needed or is needed for match funding. Roughly $2.34 million worth of those awarded funds were in joint grant applications, and those were led by CROG. Both were led by CROG. One was for the RAISE grant for a study of the Berlin Turnpike for an 11-mile stretch, and the Connecticut Recreational Trails Grant Program for maintenance equipment. The other funding came directly to the town for our capital projects, in addition to some programming as well. And now I'll talk about the match needs and what staff has been able to provide for reimbursements as well. Slow me down if you need me to talk about it in a little bit more detail, or please ask questions as we go along, because I'm going to be kind of mentioning a lot of numbers. Just to start from the top, for the Safe Streets and Roads program, which was the first grant application we submitted for, the grant ask was for $624,800 for a total project cost of $781. Our match need for that project is $46,000. That's because we're receiving a $71,000 reimbursement for staff time. If we weren't doing that, our grant match, or our grant need, match need would be roughly $117,000, but we're able to receive a reimbursement for staff time there. For the Urban and Community Forestry Planning Grant, that's a $19,000, almost $20,000 project where we provided $2,500 as a match need, and we were able to be reimbursed for over $17,000 worth of staff time to complete that project. One more that's a pretty big hitter is one that we received for the Transportation Alternatives Grant. We applied for a $990,000 project. It was later escalated to be a $1.36 million project by DOT, so that's the project cost. And we received $1.88 million worth of funding. Now, our match need roughly should be $272,000, but our engineering department will be doing design for that project.
Lada, where are you? I'm sorry.
Yep, so that's at the first page at the bottom, Transportation Alternatives.
Okay, no, okay, it's not in the chart, okay.
Yep, that's
It's
in the chart
underneath
right at the bottom.
It's underneath, okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep. So for that one, we'll be receiving between $120,000 and $140,000 as reimbursement for the in-house work that our engineering department will be completing. So I think that speaks to our expertise of our engineering department and our staff to be able to step up and to be able to implement these programs. But I want just to make it clear, they're taking on extra work to be able to do this. A lot of other towns do a lot of this work with external consultants. We do a lot of it in-house because the match reimbursement for us is that much less if we do it in-house. When it comes to engineering projects, we're reaching that point where we really can't take on more work. So we're getting to the place where either we don't take on more projects, we take on another engineer, or we need to pay a consultant to do some of this work. My understanding and what I've observed is that our in-house staff is able to do a fair amount of projects. For $120,000, that's close to being able to pay an engineer for a year. And this is for one project. So I just want to put that in perspective, that it would be beneficial to take on another engineer at some point to be able to do this work in-house so that we can continue to do the work and we don't have to pay consultants externally for it.
Do those funds come in, I'm sorry, I'm just jumping in.
Please, please.
Do those funds come in at the completion of the project? And some can take a long time, right?
It depends on the grant.
Okay.
Some grants are at the completion of the project. This particular one is at each phase. So when we complete the design phase, we're able to request that reimbursement. So we'll get that 120 to 140. We need to track our hours to find that final amount. We receive that funding, then we go into construction, where then we only need to pay 160 to complete a $1.36 million project. I think that's around less than 10, a little over 10%, 12%. That's really nice. We're really leveraging in-house funds and our staff. That's such a great percentage to be able to do a $1.36 million project. And you'll see that in other projects.
Into which fund?
I'm sorry?
Which fund does the reimbursement go into when we get it back?
I'm not sure which fund the reimbursement goes when we get it back.
Great. Great.
I love the honesty.
It was the look, right?
When we get reimbursements, Mike, when we get reimbursements from these projects that she's doing, which are amazing, what fund does the reimbursement go into?
When we get it reimbursed.
Well, no, it's just
When we get it back.
In-house.
specific to if the grant is paying for staff time, like for Derek's staff's time to do the design, we get reimbursed for that. Where would that money go when it came back to us?
It would go to the project where we're accounting for the project. A project account, everything goes in there. So we would actually take money out of the expended in the general fund this year, put it over there where we expect it to be reimbursed, and then when the money comes in, it matches that. At the end of the project, everything zeroes out.
So long story short, goes into the general fund after?
Into the project fund. Into that project's fund.
But
So
if we have money already put aside for that fund, for that project, and we're getting reimbursement. So to zero it out, we'd have a little over, wouldn't we?
And if that's the case, then it would roll into
Then
the
it would
general
go to
fund at the end of the year,
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so for example, this project, we need to pay $160,000, well, roughly, because we need to see where the time comes out and the reimbursements. So we need to pay $160,000. We'll get reimbursed between $120 and $140.
So the net will only have to pay
Yeah.
20 to 30, yeah.
I'm sorry, the total cost for that one was $272. I put the net on that one.
That's,
Yeah, sorry
You're
about
okay, that's
trying
not
to
what I
make it clear, but. So I did want to take a look at fiscal year '24. I know we're in '25. It's just that when we're submitting for grants in the fiscal year, you don't hear about them sometimes for 6 months, if you're going to get them awarded or not. And this being the first year in front of you folks, wanted to speak to the work that's already been done by staff in the department and why we're going to be kind of a standalone department because we bridge so many other folks. So now to move to fiscal year '25, we've already submitted for 15 funding opportunities this fiscal year. We're projected to submit for 3 more. The high-level totals are, we're projected to submit for roughly $18.2 million of grant funding this year to support roughly $5 million worth of project costs. That's because we submitted 2 grant opportunities, roughly around $5 million each for the same project to different funding sources. So that's why the funding request outweighs the project costs. We've already been awarded $543,000 this year, and our match needs, if awarded all the grants, will be $308,000. And for fiscal year '24, roughly $1 million in funding grant matches. We did already set aside $360,000 for the chiller and HVAC. This is back in fiscal year '24. We did already set aside $360,000 in ARPA funding to support the Silas Deane Middle School chiller and air handler project, along with $400,000 from the CIP reserve that the town council had approved to support that. We did go to CIP last year to request $400,000 in grant match needs, which was not funded. Now this being a new department and us continuing to submit for grant projects and being awarded, we'll need to be facilitating payments for matches in the future. Just to give a high-level timeline, kind of across projects, from the time you submit is a point in time, roughly 3 to 6 months later, we know if we're awarded. 3 to 6 months after that, we're contracted, and then the work can begin. By the time grant funding is needed is typically 2 to 3 to 4 years after a grant is submitted for, depending on the size and scope. So we're reaching that point now. That's roughly where we are now, where we're going to need to be paying for reimbursements and paying for grant matches in the next year or 2. So it was okay, kind of, that we didn't fund grant matches during this fiscal year, but that time is coming, so we need to start preparing for that. And we are leveraging our funds so much more successfully when we get grant funding, so it's important to continue. I'd also like to just share that we did previously put in grant funding offsets in the salary portion of my position. We're not doing that any longer. We're tracking it as the reimbursements come in because they were estimates that weren't really very exact because the reimbursements happen so much further in the future. And then just to provide a little bit more clarity as well for this fiscal year, we have been awarded 7 out of the 9 funding opportunities we've heard about this year. So again, very exciting and very good hit rate. And we've been able to also submit for 7 opportunities since our new employee has started since January 6th. So that's been a wonderful addition to the department. Those were really the high-level pieces I wanted to discuss. Let me know if there's any specific questions about any particular grant or high-level funding needs or grant match needs.
Lotta, thank you. Very thorough. Appreciate all your work, all the grants. If you were a baseball player batting 7 for 9, you'd be in the Hall of Fame. So that's a good batting average.
You'd be more than,
Thank you.
In the Hall of Fame.
you'd be running baseball or something.
I'd want a golden baseball.
But, thank you. So I'm going to open it up for questions and comments. Counselor Durek?
Like, I'll go next.
Very quickly, I do want to say we are in a very difficult funding environment right now, as you probably could have guessed. I'm unsure if this type of success will continue. So just to level set, let's go to the Hall of Fame now. But just want to level set that now. I also predict that, and we've talked about this, that state funding will become much more competitive with the ambiguity with federal funding. So expecting a lot more competition in the grants.
Understood. Thank you. Counselor Durek?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Lada, for all you do. I'm just looking at these numbers, and I think we're going to have a hard time as a town just to pay the matching funds. There's no way we'll do all these projects on our own, given the funding that we have. The quick question on the CIP project matching grant line item, $200,000. They'll be part of the budget, correct?
Correct, that's in the budget right now.
Okay. Could we use the CIP money if needed, or it needs to be part of the budget?
You could offset it with CIP money instead, that's your option.
And we do expect that we'll need about 200,000 based on...
That's a low number. You know,
That's a low
we're
number.
just, again, because the budget was so tight this year, the initial request was a lot more. We want to put something in there to start preparing for this, because what we end up having to do is, run the mic and trying to find creative ways to have you guys approve it. But we can only do that so often because we have been successful with the grants, which is great because we're getting millions of dollars worth of funding and projects done that otherwise would not be done at all for a fraction of the cost. But that said, we still need to put some skin in the game to
Thank you.
be eligible.
And just to speak to this again, the feasibility study, sometimes we really need to go through a study before we submit for grant funding. Funding sources like to see that we're investing in our own project. And a feasibility study is, I don't want to say pennies on the dollar, but it's really a small investment when we go after these large dollars. For example, the Pitkin feasibility study is about $37,000. We're looking to present that to you over the summer, where we're looking at cost estimates now that we hope to have in the next couple of weeks. Really developing a clear cost estimate for a full renovation of the building, along with an addition that will really help serve the community and serve the needs. Folks going to it, folks not going to the community center yet. But we need to do some of those things as an investment in our projects to be able to speak to them clearly, concisely, and directly when we submit comprehensive grant applications. If we don't do that, sometimes I want to say, look, why are we submitting? It's a lot of work to not be able to speak to a project clearly and not to be able to really define what we need. So we need to make that investment up front. So that was a $37,000 feasibility study that I think will pay us back time and time again. We needed to do a feasibility study of the organics recycling project to really understand that, to scope it out, to have technical professionals come in and explain, to help us figure out how to run a project, a successful project, to look at the benefits, the costs, and all of the analysis. So those are costs we need to incur to be able to do the right project and to implement it correctly.
Thank you for that. Further, Counselor Clancy?
Maud, I just wanted to tell you, I think you're killing it. I wish we could hire 3 or 4 more of you.
We just did.
One more.
One more.
I actually just looked to see how many people from town are watching on YouTube, because I was hoping everybody was looking at all the money you have been raking in. There's 4 people watching right now.
Okay.
4.
Maybe we'll get some views later.
Could be one in your house, Cindy.
Yeah, probably somebody at my house.
Or that actually takes some pressure off. I'll take it.
So when you apply for a grant and you don't get it, do they tell you why?
Yes.
Ever?
It depends. Usually they do. Usually you can ask for a debrief, which is very nice. We try to take advantage of that where we can, and it's helpful. And then we choose to either submit or not to submit. For example, we submitted to the...
What I'm curious about is the patrol boat. We asked a lot of questions of the police about it last night, so I'm curious to hear.
So the patrol boat is an interesting grant. We actually ended up not qualifying for it. We thought that we did. We thought we went through all the pieces to make sure that we qualified for that grant. It turned out that we did not as a community. So that's unfortunate. So that's the reason we didn't receive that grant. We are looking to pursue others for the patrol boat. I know they're using a fishing boat right now, which is not ideal for the 5 miles that they patrol. The happy thing that came out of that is we have a lot of data that's teed up for another grant application. So that was unfortunate. We thought that we did qualify, and it turned out we did not. That's the only time that's happened. It's a little embarrassing, to be honest. But yeah, so that
There are other boat grants out there, huh?
Typically, they're Department of Homeland Security grants. As you can imagine, a lot of that funding is strained right now. We've been looking into it. I actually gave them a call right around the new year, and they made it very clear that those programs are not available currently. I do know that the PD recently registered for another program where they kind of submit an application, and they might just be able to receive something based on either town size or need. But I think we're pretty low on the totem pole because they typically go by size of municipality. So there are other programs that they're looking into for the patrol boat. Unfortunately, the ones that we would typically pursue just don't have the funding at this point. They're typically federal programs. That's just, again, that word ambiguous at this point and on hold.
Okay, thank you.
No, sadly.
Thank you, Councilor Clancy. Further, Councilor Carbone?
Yes, thank you. Hi. So I'm going to start at the beginning for me, and that's salaries. So originally, these were in your budget, the town manager's budget last year, both of these salaries?
2
years ago. One was 2 years ago.
Last year, we put them into economic and community development, and that's where the position was created for Matt's position. But in working through this and the fact that they work with every single department, we just didn't feel it was appropriate to have them in one department, and we kind of made them their own based upon that.
Okay. Is there a salary increase?
There is, we did as part of the creating a new department, we did what's called a job analysis questionnaire based upon the new role as a department head. And it's a process that was given to us from the company that did our class and compensation. They said anytime you have a new role, you go through this process, and then we can analyze what similar roles are in other communities, and we did a salary adjustment proposal based upon that.
That's a $50,000 increase just to pull it out of your department.
No.
Is that correct? No.
No.
Yeah, please tell me what it is, because,
Couple things, both
You
Lana
got
and
to step up to the microphone, sorry.
sorry.
There is a proposed increase for the director's position.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's a $30,000 increase.
No, it's not a $30,000 increase.
From 80.
And then there's also, both of Lada and Matt are in a union, and so there's union increases, for next year as well.
Yeah.
So that's where the increases are from.
I think because you pulled it out of your department, no, has nothing to do with that.
Doesn't matter where
She
they live
stayed
in
right
the
where
budget.
she
It doesn't
was.
matter where their office is. They're in a union. They get the benefits and salary adjustments that are in, contractual.
You have to go big.
Okay.
Yeah.
The contract
I'm like, no
increase.
offense, keep her in your office. No, I'm kidding.
No.
No, well, last year's also didn't include the tier change as well. That was not included.
Yeah,
in the position.
we finalized the 818 contract during last year's budget, during last fiscal year. So there was some larger changes in that contract that have increased salaries.
That wasn't reflected in last year's budget.
Okay, because I'm
Yeah,
like, that's a
it's not that
huge
big now.
increase. Yeah, okay, because that's where the confusion.
No, she wishes,
this budget
she had, everyone is where they need to be according to the contract.
Okay, All right, thank you. Appreciate that, because that was kind of confusing. The second is, I have a few. So Pitkin, you mentioned Pitkin. So we applied twice previously and been denied twice.
Yep.
And did you handle the first two? No.
No,
neither.
so I helped out with the second one. I had just started right around that time. The feedback that was received after that submission was, you're not shovel ready. You don't know what you're asking for. So we talked about it at great length and decided to take a step back, and actually at the advice of 3 different architecture and engineering firms, all guided us to complete a feasibility study and said, you're looking at revamping all of your space, you're looking at understanding your space needs, but you really don't know what you need because you're not assessing your programs, your space usage, what you want to put in the community center. What do you want to take out, if anything?
That feasibility study encompassed all of that.
Yes. So
we're in a pretty
actually,
good spot, I hope.
the town council was able to also submit approval. I think there was something in October during maybe an executive session before a meeting where folks were able to submit. Work session,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, you
Where folks were able to submit recommendations as well. I think we had 8 to 10 different groups that the consultants met with, from the Keene Foundation to businesses to, I don't think we had the shopkeepers in that one, but WEC, members of WEC, Social and Youth Services, Parks and Rec, that really were able to speak to their true needs, have private time alone with the consultant to speak to their needs. They took all of that information and presented us with a result for the building, presented us with what an addition might look like and several options, and then we sat with staff, with Parks and Rec, Social and Youth, Sally Katz, Physical Services, and decided kind of what that looked like. Once a site plan was developed, we met with the fire marshal, engineering,
I don't mean to
planning.
interrupt you, Vlad, but is this new grant application, has that already been filed for Pitkin?
Nope, so the grant application that's coming is actually going to be an additional planning application. So the feasibility helps us decide kind of what we want to do with each room. We still need funding for engineering, for the addition specifically, for the renovation as a whole. So they're also helping us to price out what we've just talked about in the project that we want and what that's going to look like, and price out what that engineering and architecture piece will look like, and then if we need to phase it, what that looks like. If we
So
don't.
this year, it's going to be coming up this year? Okay.
Yeah, so we should have a cost estimate for the totality of the project, I think in the next month or 2.
Great.
We'll be submitting the grant application through CIF for a planning grant. The cap is $250,000 for that. And then, really trying to figure out if we're going to phase it, how we're going to phase it, and what the project would look like.
I have another question about projects. I think Councilor Dirk mentioned something about funding from the town. We're tight. So what happens if we get funding? If we get approved for a grant, but we have to match it with funds that we don't have. What happens to the project? Is it something we can put on hold? Is there a time period for that?
Yep, so it's always unique to that particular grant, to that organization, and how they're able to work with you. So typically from the time we apply to the time we're contracted, could be anywhere from 6 months to a year, maybe more. It was roughly a year and a half for Safe Streets. Took a while to get contracted. The time we actually have to start paying that reimbursement could be another year later, could be 3 years later, could be 5. So we've been talking about a schedule of when reimbursements or when payments are due, and what that looks like.
We get the reimbursement, but
we get the reimbursement. So yes,
match.
exactly. So kind of looking at a schedule of when we could receive reimbursements, when payments might be due in the future, and what those funding needs would be. We've reached the point where in the next year or so we will need to make payments in addition to receiving some reimbursements, but we'll be needing to make more payments than we're receiving reimbursements.
Yeah, so what you're going to see in future budgets will be as part of either CIAC or a separate grant request. We're going to be putting in there, we've been awarded this grant, this is what our match needs to be, and we're going to ask for it in that year's budget. And you'll be seeing that on a regular basis based upon the success of this program. But then we'll also show you the money we're getting.
Pin in it?
What's that?
Can we put a pin in it? Like say we don't have funds for that this year, will we lose the grant? Or can we say, can we do it next year instead?
We're going to get ahead of it So we're going to ask for it before we need it. But if you don't approve it, then no, you generally can't put a pin in it. They're basically going to say, if you can't match it, then you've got to decline the grant.
Okay.
Which is an option too.
Yeah, it starts getting to that point. Sometimes you can slightly work with them, but there is a time period where
That's
you
what I
have
was
to say
asking.
yes.
Is there a time frame? Like, do they give us 6 months? Do they give us time to think, like, to
It
come up
depends
with-
on the grant,
Okay.
really, truly, and the size of the grant and kind of if we're handling the engineering, if we're not, kind of what phase we're in the project. It's very unique to that specific project, the agency, and that program.
Yeah, I'll tell you that, Wethersfield's been very negligent, frankly, in a lot of these capital types of projects, and there's no way we can accomplish them without getting grants. So we're being, with Vlada and Matt in their positions, we're being extra aggressive, going after as much as we can, because we have a lot to catch up on. And again, we need the help. We're paying pennies on the dollar if we're successful in getting these grants, and we'll make that argument when it comes time, if, for the ones we get awarded, when it comes time to come up with a match, as part of that budget process, to say, look, this is, we'd be throwing away money if we don't put this money towards it and get this project done. So, but it will always be the council's choice at that time to say, yes, we want to spend that, or no, we're just not going to do it, and we're not going to accept this other money.
Negligent or fiscally responsible or irresponsible?
It's basically been, it's choices, right? It's kicking the can down the road. This is more important than this year, and there hasn't been, for a town our size and our budget size, there's been very little borrowing. There's been very little bonding, very little leasing. For a town our size, which is a, it's a financial approach you can take, but for a community like ours, the bill comes due eventually. You can't pay as you go for everything that a town like this needs. You've got to borrow, and when you don't, then you end up with a large list of projects that need to get done, and that's where we're at right now. So we're trying to do catch up. It's going to be decades before we catch up if we're successful doing what we're doing and we continue doing what we're going to ask you to do. If you don't, it'll take longer than that. So, and contrary, we'll also begin to ask you to bond more, because it's just prudent. Obviously we have the school referendum that is likely to be coming up, but beyond that, the Pitkin is a great example of a project that we should bond, in my opinion. Otherwise, you're going to look at 10 years of grant applications to get something like that done.
And the cost will just keep increasing,
Yeah.
so we'll be chasing a moving target for quite some time.
And, this building will come due again soon, and all of our other buildings. So these are things that we need to be dealing with and not waiting, so.
I do want to say, again, I refer to fiscal year '24 because we've heard back on all the grants, and it's a little bit of an easier whole to look at. We did receive, out of the totality of grant asks that we submitted for, we're only going to, if we choose to move ahead with all the projects, we're only paying for about 15% of the total cost of those projects. I think that's a really good place to be, especially when one of those projects we're required to pay 44% on the HVAC project, and that's a big one. So pretty good funding percentage.
Thursday nights.
So I think if we keep going this way, we're really able to leverage the funds we do have for these great needs that we need to supplement.
Great, thank you. Further questions for Vlada? Deputy Mayor Forrest.
Thanks. Vlada, concisely. In the middle of your discussion, or your presentation, you indicated that I thought I heard, but please correct me if I'm wrong, that you felt like you were getting pretty close to capacity for applying for grants to not expand even beyond the regular grant process. Was that accurate?
That in reference to engineering, to the engineering department, we've really reached kind of a tipping point where it's difficult to put more projects on their plate and expect other things not to give, or their normal workload not to give. They were able to add an engineer last year that's been here for about a year. He's been able to take on an additional workload, but again, we've now loaded that person up with new projects. So taking on an additional workload with projects that require the technical skill set of our engineering department is difficult, so.
So the engineering limitation limits your ability to actually go out and get grants.
Right, because if we're not utilizing our in-house staff, then we need to use a consultant. And if we're having a difficult time matching project needs of.
What is the release of that limitation? An additional engineer,
Yeah.
clerk?
Engineer.
It's just like, hey, a regular engineer.
Yeah, Derek actually spoke to this when he presented to
I'm
you all.
sorry, I did miss.
Yeah, and specific to this issue, and he said, definitely another engineer and a clerk to help do the administrative piece will help, but it's, he's really, because we've been successful, they're doing a lot of design work for these projects to keep the costs down.
If we were able to fund an engineer, your grant writing gets even bigger than this. Is that what I'm hearing?
Oh, yeah, we could take on other projects, additional projects. And typically engineering projects, are in the millions, depending on what we're looking at. We submitted for a brick grant for a $2.6 million project to replace a culvert to mitigate flood risk, so, yeah.
Thank you for
They're big
explaining the
projects.
limiting factor.
Mhm.
I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Forrest. Further councilors' questions? Councilor
I just
Bailey.
have one question. In the 24-25 side, there was 50 or 5,000 for Kids on Keisha half-day camp pilot. Did that ever happen?
Yep, so the fiscal year, so 23-24, we received $4,000 for the K-2 pilot, and we just were notified of award for the 24-25 grant as well, so $5,000 for that. So the pilot for the K-2 ages will happen at the end of June, and they're going to be writing the curriculums for the grant that we just received for the Department of Ag Kids on Keisha Camp Pilot for grades 3 to 5 and 6 to 8 over the next fiscal year with a
All right, so this 5,000 happens in June.
Well, so not positive about exactly what you're asking, but to try to answer it, we received a $2,000 upfront to be able to pay for costs as we went along. We'll also receive an additional $2,000 reimbursement. Our match is volunteer time, so we don't have any type of cash match that we need to provide for that.
All right, so
Does that
that's
answer your
4,000. You said 2,000 and 2,000, that's 4. This
Yep.
says 5,000 award amount.
So that's for, so that's for fiscal year 24-25. We did receive that award letter maybe 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. So we just contracted for that one. So that work is going to begin. That program, that pilot will happen next summer because they need to write the curriculum. They'll also write the curriculum for grades 6 to 8, and we're going to look for funding to have that pilot in summer of 27. So looking to do an agricultural program from K to through high school. And we've received funding for K through 8 curriculum.
Is that Park and Rec doing that?
So Parks and Rec is working with Friends of Keisha to develop that.
Any other questions for Vlada? Thank you, Vlada.
Thank you.
So next up is the town clerk and councilors. We're a little behind, and after Sue presents, we'll discuss whether we might want to move the town manager and finance, the next two sections, to our last one Thursday night. Our Thursday night agenda is very light, if you've seen it. We can talk about that after Sue's. So Sue, why don't you go next, and we can either continue, we'll talk about it, or we can move the last couple items, because we're about 45 minutes behind, which is okay. Lots of great questions, councilors. So Sue, you're up. Stay there, is that easier?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll
Yeah.
just stay here.
Yep.
I don't have a lot to go line item, but I just have the highlights, if that's okay. So I'll start out first with the salary increase. So the salary increase was driven mostly by the retroactive 1303 and 408 union contract that was behind a few years, so that's where that increase comes. It takes most of that for the full-time assistant salary. Then there are the other, the next is the workers' comp the decrease in that, I'm sorry, not the workers' comp, the absentee ballots, the decrease in that is, we had added $5,000 last year for the 2024 presidential election, but that's not needed right now, because this should be a lot less during the municipal years are a little bit lighter than that. And then the advertising for legal, there's an increase in 500, but right now I'm already $735 over budget here. I'm hoping that maybe this will be a little bit lower when the charter revision is done, if they decide to not have to put the public hearings and the adoptions for the resolutions, if that changes. Otherwise, we have to advertise for all of those. And also, we will be doing advertising for the referendum as well as the regular elections that come up. And then the others are basically just cost of living. Everybody's things are increasing, so microfilm storage, and then supplies and binders. We're going through a lot more paper. We're actually getting in some extra revenue due to the fact that the funeral homes now can come to the local town clerk's offices to get their death certificates. So rather than having to go to Hartford, we have our funeral directors coming right to our office. And there's some days, first thing in the morning, we may be issuing 30 death certificates to one funeral home for different individuals that they bring in. And then right after them, the next funeral home comes in, and we can do, close to 100 in one morning sometimes. So we're going through a lot of paper. And then we just have some binders that we try to consolidate our vitals and put them 2 years in one binder. The binders are expensive, but I've combined about as much as I can before we need to get new ones. That's that.
Talk about your position request.
And so I did request a position for the office. I know it's a big ask for this budget due to the reval this year and all the other larger needs that everybody has. But it has been unfilled since 2017, and we find that really we need that extra person. Even several years ago, I did ask for it to be a full-time position, which was not funded. So I was trying to make the part-time position full-time. My council clerk, Deb, does so much for the council, and that really, it could be a full-time position. But we have so much customer service, people coming in, phone calls, even just people want to know, where do I go, or trying to ask a question, and sometimes you can't really cut them off before, they realize that they're in the wrong place. But and sometimes we just have to help people. We kind of just listen to what they have to say and sympathize with them and see if we can help them. So with all that the office does, we do liquor permits and all the marriage licenses, fishing licenses, updates to the code book, the blue book, notary services, trade name certificates, dog licenses, vital records, and then just with the land records, marginal notations. I believe we're the only town in the state that still does those, but I think they're important for the searchers. We have to verify, correct, mail back all the land records, which we do pretty much the next day, and we're pretty on top of all that. So it would really help us, even just because going to lunch and things like that, or vacations, it's hard to get coverage sometimes.
Thank you, Sue, and appreciate all the work you and your staff does. And I always say you're part of the face of the town hall, because so many citizens and residents come in to see you and your staff, and you guys do a great job with those, and I've witnessed it. So thank you.
We enjoy working with the residents that come in, and it's great to see the repeat customers and meet the new people. So We had someone like that today, and she comes in every 3 months and has to have something notarized, and it's nice to see the
Yeah,
people.
no, we appreciate it, and you may, more than other departments, probably by the nature you are, directly dealing face-to-face with residents on a daily basis, and appreciate that. So let's open it up for questions for Sue, for Town Clerk. Does anybody have any questions for Sue? No. Did such a great job. Thank you, Sue.
Thank you.
So, what's the council's pleasure? Do you want to keep going? We have 2 other items tonight, or we have a lighter, last, session Thursday night on the 29th. Anybody have any thoughts? We have the town manager's budget and the rest of finance still on tonight's agenda.
We did part of Mike's already, right?
Part of it, yeah.
We can power through with those last 2, or we can move them.
I wouldn't mind going and move it to the later agenda.
I agree.
Put it for 2 hours.
You ready to go?
Hopefully some people are ready to go. I don't,
Could we finish Mike's tonight and move Fred's to Thursday?
I like that
We'll
idea.
compromise?
Mike, do you have a lot left?
I don't have to come Thursday then, right?
I think you're on.
Nice try.
Mike, that was fantastic.
So Mike, do you have a lot left? I know we did some of you.
I have, there's 2, so central office, I think that's pretty easy.
Treasurer.
Service contingency, super easy. Transfers for CIP and CNEF, it's either easy or really hard and long. And then I have the reserve for retirees and insurance are the 2 that have a little meat on the bone there. That's a lot.
So
The retiree raise
I don't know
too,
what-
right? We have to talk about that.
Counselors, I'm open to suggestions if you want to keep moving or you want to go and do these last 2
I'll do whatever.
Thursday
anybody
night. Does
wants.
anybody
Whatever, it doesn't matter.
For Thursday.
prefer Thursday?
2.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll hop
Okay.
on the bandwagon.
Okay.
I would have
so-
done either way.
So you're going to be here anyway? It sounds like there's a consensus.
Here you walk, I mean,
Yeah. We're gonna gnaw on that service.
But you did.
I'm sensing some folks tired here, so I will
Make a motion to
review the
adjourn.
consensus. Counselor Carbone has made a motion to adjourn. Do I have a
Second.
second? Second, all in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Carbone.
Thank you.
Boom.
5+ on the council.
That's right, that's right. Not you.
There's Matt's.
Past our bedtime.